Welcome to the Weather or Not and to What Degree podcast. I'm First Alert meteorologist Chrissy Kohler alongside First Alert meteorologist Brian Bachman.
Hello.
It's our favorite time of year, Brian.
It sure is. Fall.
Yeah.
Colors are not going to be too far off, at least as far as when we're recording this.
Right?
Pumpkin spice, everything is coming back.
Well, you know, that didn't wait until fall
That's
to come
true.
back. You know,
Yeah.
that was like middle of August where all those fall-loving people were like, let's get out the pumpkin spice.
As early as possible.
I guess. I guess. But we're here to talk about the weather and the foliage,
Yep.
not necessarily pumpkin spice. Let's talk about what you and I know, which is these leaves and the things like that.
Yeah, you know, folks getting anxious to see the fall colors, and you know, we're kind of in our usual MO of when we tend to reach those peak levels of color. And if you've been here a long time, or maybe you're new to the area, either way, we'll run you through this here. If you're in the mountains, you're up first. Higher elevations, cooler weather reaches you first, and that tends to start, of course, triggering the fall colors a bit sooner. So looks like mid-October, right along the peaks of the Blue Ridge there, kind of north or west of Asheville. You get into late October, anywhere from the 20th to Halloween, places like Asheville, Hendersonville, some of those still mountainous but slightly lower elevation spots. And upstate folks, still plenty of time. We got a month and a half before we get there. Early November, that's a big chunk of northeastern Georgia there too. So I think what I would take away from that is you've got a long period of time, if you're a huge fan of fall colors, where you don't have to travel too far to see them at their best.
That's true. Well, and if you do want to take a trip, you can kind of get the best of both worlds. Like if you wanted to travel up north and maybe check out the fall foliage in late September, early October, you can get that and then come back home and get to see it a couple weeks later.
There's so many places. I think of the couple years I spent working in upstate New York.
Yeah.
There's nothing like seeing the mountains just completely exploding in color. The 8 years I spent in Michigan, some amazing colors with all the trees up there. And yeah, it's a phenomenon that gradually works its way south.
Yeah.
So if you're super avid, you can go all sorts of places and see it.
Which is great. And you know, interestingly enough, I think we landed on a couple of lists this year for, or at least the Asheville area, the Western North Carolina area landed on a couple of lists for places to go to leaf peep, because our colors are just as stunning as they are up north in the Northeast. I think a lot of people, myself included, tend to think of the Northeast as those gorgeous colors. But we get those nice colors, we just get them a little later. Yeah. So, you know.
It's more of a closer to Halloween. It's an October, November thing, as we mentioned, as opposed to, you know, sometimes you get them as early as late August if the weather's going the right way up in the Great Lakes or the Northeast.
Summer.
And then, by midsummer, you've already got, or summer, not summer, mid-September, you've got, you know, some places that are reaching their peak there. Yeah, so we eventually get it here. And between our terrain, I think really helps, you know, really make them pop much more when we reach those peak colors. There's nothing like seeing the mountainous terrain that kind of spreads out. You get to a high spot and just look out over the valleys and just seeing it awash with these colors. It's
absolutely beautiful.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely beautiful. And I know we'll get tons of beautiful pictures when people start to see those
no
colors.
doubt.
So you and I were just talking that this year we may end up being a little ahead of schedule. So we were just talking about peak of when we typically would see that in an average year. But it's been an unseasonably cool September. We really haven't had temperatures above normal. We had some 90s there at the end of August, but then we transitioned pretty quickly once we hit September and meteorological fall. We've been like in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, we've really leaned into fall, even
Feeling
if it's
like
not
fall.
official, you know, astronomical fall yet. Like you said, we've had highs in the 70s, 80s. I mean, we should be still at this early mid-September point.
Right.
We should still be hitting about 84, 85 upstate. And some days we're not even making 80. So that plays a hand in it. And that's something too I've heard debate, you know, over the years. Some people say weather has no impact on, you know, how the colors behave whatsoever. And that's not true. Weather actually, while a big part of it comes from the fact that the daylight period is getting shorter and the trees start to sense that, weather absolutely plays a hand in either how vivid the colors are, how long they last, how quickly they pop, when they really start to pop. So a lot of layers to it.
And it should be a pretty good season since we've been so dry. The last time we had rain was early September, and then, a little bit of rain coming in the middle of September. But overall, it's been a fairly dry month so far.
Yeah, and as you see, we had it up on the screen. We'll put it back up in a second here for you. Dry weather, not drought level dry weather,
right?
But generally drier weather tends to be best to get your best foliage season, your best, most vivid colors. It's clear, chilly nights, which we've had some of those popping up here too every so often that have been good. And you mentioned wet weather. It's good that we haven't had a lot of it, because while you want to get, I still think some, you don't want to be bone dry, but too much wet weather can either mute the colors, or it can actually trigger the leaves to fall off faster.
Yeah.
Because that added weight from the water, if you're getting a lot of rain, it can just pop the leaves off before they even have a chance to really change. So
makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want to be rooting for a ton of rain if you want your best foliage.
That's true.
colors.
Yeah. So hopefully that should all help us to have a stunning season, since everything so far in September is kind of set up for that. And so you mentioned, Brian, that we have these shorter days, which is one of the reasons that we start to see those colors change. And it's really because of those shorter days. The longest day of the year is back in June when you get that summer solstice. And now we're headed towards the winter solstice, which will be in December. The autumn equinox is where we get that 12-hour day, that it's the even
Basically
12 hours
equal.
of daylight, 12 hours of nighttime. And so we get these shorter and shorter days, these cooler temperatures, and that's all leading to why, naturally, why this would happen regardless of the weather.
Yeah, the trees start to sense that. They realize because they use the sunlight for energy to make their food. So when they suddenly realize they're not getting as much of that energy, that's what is one of the triggering mechanisms to tell them, hey, it's time to start.
Time to go.
It's time to start shedding those leaves, make some colors, and then go to sleep for the winter.
Let's do it, And, I think I always think back to elementary school when you learn basics of earth science and talking about chlorophyll, and that's what makes the leaves green. And it's that chlorophyll breaking down that leads to the colors getting, it's almost like they get replaced, right? You get the chlorophyll, the chlorophyll makes the leaves green, and then because it breaks down, the other chemicals are able to come out and then replace that green color.
Yeah, and it's whatever chemical in the leaves is present in the greatest amount that dictates the color you'll see.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's so crazy how all this chemistry and nature works in terms of all this stuff. These colors are, I'll be honest with you, Brian, I can't pronounce half of these.
They're fun. I remember we did an in-studio virtual reality explainer on this last year, and it's a lot of nasty sounding words, very difficult to say, but all those are the specific chemicals that play into the colors you get. So you mentioned there, chlorophyll, of course, is what makes them green. Chlorophyll is what allows the trees or plants to conduct photosynthesis, how they take the sunlight, transform it into energy and food. I guess the sunlight is kind of their food if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
But then as the chlorophyll leaves breaks down, as you mentioned, those bright yellows, it's a compound, at least has fill or a fill in it, so it's kind of halfway there. Xanthophyll is that yellow, or the compound that's left behind and leads to that yellow color. Xanthophyll, for example, is something that you see a lot think of yellow fruit. Bananas. Bananas have a lot of xanthophyll in their peels. I'm trying to think of other yellow fruit, like lemons to some extent. It's a little bit present in their peels. Carotene. That's one we hear about a little more.
Yeah.
But you think carrots right away, right?
Yep,
so that's where your oranges come from. I think I remember how to pronounce this one. It's anthocyanin.
That is a mouthful.
Mouthful
right
of
there.
a word.
I'm glad
I know.
you said it.
Anthocyanin. Those are your reds. So that's what's predominantly left behind after the chlorophyll breaks down. That's how you get your red. You see that in strawberries. It's actually also present, believe it or not, that's actually what gives blueberries their color.
Interesting.
Because anthocyanin, I think, by itself isn't inherently red. It's what else it mixes with. And in the case of blueberries, they contain a lot more anthocyanin that leads to their color. I forget the exact chemistry of why they look more blue than red.
Interesting.
But that's the predominant compound in a blueberry that gives it its color.
Interesting. So we could eat leaves and get the same vitamins that we get from some of those fruits.
Yeah, maybe.
vegetables.
You know, you might want to check with a nutritionist
Probably
before you
wouldn't
do
taste
that.
as good.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably wouldn't taste as
Be
good.
like eating a dry salad.
Yeah, yeah. And then we were talking tannins for brown,
Yep.
which that one I know because wine. You know, tannins.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very
You
important.
get a lot of tannins in grapes, so
Yep.
you know. The important things in life to know, right?
Could you smash down leaves to make a special kind of wine then?
I don't know. That
Probably not. It would probably taste terrible.
Probably sounds. Yeah. I maybe we just.
Very earthy.
Yes. Very earthy. Maybe we'll just leave the leaves to the the animals, and we'll just continue to eat our fruits and vegetables
fair.
and drink our wine. How's that?
I'm fine with that. Good call.
Yeah, that sounds much better. So leaves, of course, they're beautiful. We, of course, have these beautiful colors that we get to enjoy. If you're a homeowner, and you rent, and you have to take care of your own yard, there's some pros and cons there. There's definitely some pros and cons.
Yeah, fall has an opportunity to get a little exhausting.
Yeah, we have 36 trees in our yard. Not all of them are necessarily like, some of them are evergreens, so like
okay.
they don't necessarily all shed their leaves. But we get a lot of leaves in our yard. So, I have a love-hate relationship with leaves.
Fair.
Especially, so we have a couple oak trees in our yard. So 200,000 is the average number of leaves on a mature oak tree.
You know, I believe that. I think back, we don't have any, well, we have a couple of leafing trees around the development I live in, but we don't have to handle yard care, thankfully, so that's a relief. And even those trees, I wouldn't say they're fully mature. They're still somewhere between a sapling and a semi-mature tree.
Okay.
But I think back to my years living in Michigan. We had at least 3 just in our front yard alone. These trees had to be 200-year-old oak trees. And so, yeah, I believe that number. The amount of leaves that I would have to rake, and in the town I used to live in Michigan, Midland, the way the city collected leaves, they just had everybody rake them down to the curb.
Okay.
And then they'd come around with these trucks that had like a big vacuum on them, and they'd suck them all up. But even still, trying to rake all of those leaves right down to the curb, even if it's making a massive pile, it was a workout.
It's a lot of work,
It was a workout.
definitely.